Many people feel fear and doubt about the fate of the soul after the cremation of the body. However, the answer that Jesus gave to Jacqueline will challenge everything you have believed until now. Jacqueline, your brother was cremated, and yet you found him in heaven. How was that emotional reunion? My name is Jacqueline Stamboul. I am 49 years old, and today I want to open my heart to share something that transformed my life in a radical way. This is not just a curious anecdote or an ordinary story. It is the shocking truth about what really happens when we die, and it could challenge all your beliefs. On February 16, 2024, I lost my life in a tragic car accident. It feels strange even to say these words, but that is what happened. However, that day, God had not yet completed his work with me. He brought me back to life, bringing with him a message that is not just for me, but also for people like you, who may be struggling with doubt, fear, or even trying to understand what lies beyond death. I know firsthand what it means to face uncertainty. I am well aware of how the pain of loss and the shadow of fear can take root in the heart. Perhaps you have also experienced the loss of a loved one and wondered where they have gone. Or perhaps you feel a deep fear of death, questioning whether there is truly something beyond this world. Whatever your struggle may be, I want to share something with you with complete sincerity. There is hope, genuine hope, and I had the privilege of witnessing it with my own eyes. What I experienced was neither a nightmare nor a mere hallucination. It was something more tangible and real than any experience I have had in this world. I am not here to instill fear or to cause unease, but to offer a message of peace. I don't have all the answers, but there is one thing I am completely sure of. God is real, Jesus is alive, and death is not the end. At that precise moment, as I crossed the border between life and death, I felt myself being torn from my body. The car was in pieces. People were running frantically to help me, but I was no longer there. I watched the scene as if I were an external spectator, trying to scream. I'm fine. I'm here. But the words wouldn't come out of my mouth. A deep sense of terror enveloped me. Was I really dead? How was it possible that, despite my state, I could be aware and observe my own lifeless body lying among the twisted iron bars? As confusion enveloped me, an inner voice began to whisper, "You are not alone." In the blink of an eye, I felt as if an invisible current lifted me, pulling me away from that scene. The roar of the accident faded away, and before my eyes, a light so intense revealed itself that it could have blinded me. But surprisingly, it did not hurt my sight. On the contrary, it was a comforting light, emanating peace. All the pain, all the uncertainty and weight I had carried for years vanished in that radiant clarity. I can't pinpoint how much time I spent there, floating in that glow, but it was enough time to realize that fear had completely disappeared. I was about to experience something extraordinary. As I stepped into that light, I underwent a transformation that is difficult to express. It was as if I had left behind everything that was limited and fleeting to enter a completely new reality. There was neither loss nor absence, only a profound clarity that enveloped me like a warm embrace. For the first time, I experienced authentic freedom, free from my body, from time, and from the suffering that life often brings. The light unfolded around me in an infinite, soft, and welcoming manner. It was not simply a flash, it was an enveloping presence, a presence so filled with love that, even without a body, my heart was flooded with tears. I knew in that moment that someone was by my side. I felt a force pushing me forward. It wasn't a brute force, but an invisible call, a connection that felt natural and inevitable. I didn't need to walk as I would on land. I just had to force myself to move forward, and somehow I was already there. It was as if I were obeying a force greater than myself, without fear, just with a confidence that grew little by little. The light that spread before me began to transform, becoming softer and more enveloping. And in its glow, shapes began to emerge. At first, they were just outlines, shadows dancing under the sun. But as I got closer, everything became clearer. Vicolinas shone with an intense gold. Rivers sparkled as if they were made of pure light, and skies pulsed with a serene energy. Even the air seemed to come alive, vibrating with an inaudible melody that resonated deep within my being. An intense emotion enveloped me, and it was neither fear nor sadness. It was a reverent awe, as if I had finally returned home after a long and exhausting journey. Nothing in that place showed signs of pain or wear. Everything was perfect, pure. I didn't question how I had gotten there or what would happen next. I simply immersed myself in that landscape of indescribable beauty, enjoying every moment in its splendor. And then, in the distance, I glimpsed someone approaching. My heart, or what used to be called that, began to beat strongly, and I knew, without a doubt, that I was about to meet Jesus. In that moment, time seemed to stand still, perhaps even to stop. I didn't know if he was approaching me or if, in reality, I was irresistibly drawn to him. Maybe it was a little bit of both. Her presence shone, but not like a mere external light. It was as if love itself manifested before my eyes, becoming visible in its essence. Her face was marked, yet at the same time, it was impossible to describe it in its entirety. It was as if I were in front of someone I had known my whole life, like a member of my own family. And those eyes, oh, those eyes. They were an abyss that overflowed any judgment. Only an infinite compassion pierced through my soul. I found myself prostrated before him, although my body did not respond to kneel. It was as if reverence arose from within me without my ability to prevent it. I could not find words. I watched him attentively, marveling at the majesty of his presence. It was then that she began to speak. She did not do so with a voice that could be heard, but in a way that resonated deeply within my soul. Those words still reverberate inside me. "Jacqueline, you are safe." 3 words that dismantled all my barriers. I laughed, even though I had no body, because the emotion was so intense that it was impossible to contain it. A deep peace enveloped me, dissipating years of insecurity, guilt, and wounds that I had carried over time. At that moment, I experienced a sense of fulfillment that I had never known before. I wanted to thank him, to ask him 1,000 things, but the words escaped me. Jesus, with a serene smile, seemed to understand everything that was going through my mind. He extended his hand, and upon touching mine, a warm sensation enveloped me. It not only comforted me but transformed me completely. It was as if, at last, everything made sense. This was what I was created for. Being by his side, with him, was my true home as we walked together. However, one question lingered in my heart. It was a concern I had kept for years, since my brother's death. He had chosen cremation, and although I tried to convince myself that it didn't matter, I always feared that, somehow, he had suffered. Dwayne felt compelled to ask, even though he didn't want to interrupt that sacred moment. However, the need to express his concern was stronger. With a trembling voice, he addressed the Lord. "Lord, the soul feels pain in the cremation." Jesus, in response, showed neither surprise nor disapproval. He looked at me tenderly, as if he had been waiting precisely for this question. And with a sigh, he said to me, "Why do you carry this burden?" Tears began to well up again, as the fear that my brother had suffered overwhelmed me. He chose cremation, and although I always tried to convince myself that it didn't matter, deep down, I was never sure. Jesus placed his hand over mine, and with a sweetness reminiscent of a gentle summer breeze, said to me, Jacqueline, the body is just a vessel. When someone departs, they are no longer bound to it. The fire that consumes the flesh can never reach the soul. Before moving on, just one request. Subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot to keep going. Your words wrapped around me like a healing water that cures old wounds. I felt a deep relief, but I still needed to understand better. So, I asked him, "Why do people fear cremation?" His smile returned, illuminated by a gaze that exuded infinite wisdom. He explained to me that they did not understand the concept of eternity. The body, after all, would always return to dust one way or another. But the soul, yours, your brother's, belongs to me. Nothing can separate you from my love. A deep sense of rest enveloped me. For years I had carried this fear in silence, like a weight that oppressed me. But now, in front of Jesus, everything began to make sense. I understood that the body is just a temporary refuge, while the soul is eternal. Death, in any case, is not the end. It is simply a door that opens to something more. Then she took my hand again and said, "Ben, there is someone you need to meet." In that moment, my heart raced. I knew who she was talking about, my brother, whom I had lost too soon. Since then, an emptiness had accompanied me every day. But now, in that moment, hope blossomed within me like never before. We walked through a field bathed in light, where the colors changed softly, as if responding to my emotions. And in the distance, I saw him. My heart was beating strongly, even though I didn't have a physical body to feel it. There was my brother, smiling at me, looking just as he did in his prime. Strong, full of life, with no trace of illness or fatigue. I ran towards him, even though I didn't need legs to move. In an instant, the space between us vanished, and we found ourselves embraced. I had never experienced such deep joy. In that first moment, words were unnecessary, for the hug said it all. Love, forgiveness, reunion. The laughter of my brother filled the room with a vibrant energy, and I laughed too. Although I had no body, I felt how tears flooded my soul. As we separated, I watched him closely. His skin radiated a soft glow, and his eyes shone with an indescribable peace. All the suffering he had witnessed in his last days had faded away. He was whole again. "You are here," I whispered, unable to fully believe it. "Of course I am," he replied, smiling with a calmness that he did not lose. "Did you doubt it?" Swallowing saliva with difficulty, I admitted, "Yes, I doubted it. After you chose cremation, I got scared. I thought I might have caused you pain." Her gaze softened. She took my hands and replied, "Jacqueline, I wish you could have seen what I experienced when I left my body. There was no pain, no fear, only light, only love. The moment I left my body was one of absolute freedom. The flames that consumed my flesh meant nothing to me. They were just part of the world I had already left behind. Hearing this from him was like lifting a weight I had carried for years. It had tormented me to imagine that his decision might have caused him suffering, but there he was, in front of me, whole and happy, free from pain. "I was wrong to doubt," I murmured. "You were not wrong to worry," he corrected me, squeezing my hands affectionately. "You doubted because you loved me. It was love that made you question, but now you know the truth. Nothing stands in the way of God's love, not even death." New tears welled up in my eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. Not only had I found my brother again, but I had also found peace. However, something inside me was still seeking understanding. I took a deep breath and asked, "So, is burial better than cremation? Is there any difference?" Jesus, who had been watching our encounter with a smile full of tenderness, stepped forward. Her presence was as overwhelming as before, but now I felt more prepared to listen to every word. "My daughter," she said sweetly, "what really matters is not the fate of the body, but that of the soul." Then he opened his arms and pointed around him, towards that vast expanse where others were also at peace, gathered with their loved ones. "All who trust in me will live again, regardless of whether their bodies have turned to dust, been buried, or burned by fire." Before we continue, just one request. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. None of this defines eternity. I clung to every phrase. He continued. "The body is fleeting. From the very first day of life, it begins to wear away. But the soul, the true essence of each person, is eternal and belongs to me. Nothing can break the bond of my love." In that moment, I understood the mistake of so many people, including my own. Many fear cremation due to tradition or fear, believing that it somehow affects the spirit. But Jesus made it clear, it is not about the method of departure, but about the destination of the soul. He looked at me with compassion and said, "Your brother did not suffer. The moment he left his body, he was already with me. The fire could never touch him. Death, whatever form it takes, is nothing more than a door." I looked at my brother, who nodded in confirmation. "Exactly," he said. I felt nothing but peace as I left my body. The cremation was just a physical event, nothing more, like leaves carried away by the wind. A deep peace enveloped me. All my doubts, all the fears I had carried for years, finally dissolved there. I had spent years worrying about the body, when in reality the soul had always been my true focus. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder, and with tenderness said to me, "Do not let traditions or fears guide your faith. What matters is to trust in me. I have every soul in my hands, no matter what happens to the body." I lowered my head, flooded with gratitude. I had come here seeking answers, and now they were before me. My brother was at peace, I was too, and I understood that on the day my journey on earth came to an end, I would return to this place to be with him. It was at that moment, alongside Jesus and my brother, that I understood the greatness that surrounded me. The sky was not just a place of love and peace. It was a kingdom of perfect order, with a vital purpose. I looked up and saw a sky different from anything I had known on earth. It was like an ocean of vibrant colors that swayed between golden, blue, and silver tones, impossible to describe with words. The air vibrated in harmony, as if every particle were in tune with something infinitely greater. There were no earthly sounds, but I could feel a soft music flowing within me, a silent symphony that was part of creation itself. Before us stretched landscapes that defied all earthly logic, structures that shone like crystal, not built by human hands, but perfectly integrated into this world. Rivers of light crossed green valleys, and the trees bore fruits that emanated a delicate glow. Nothing here was out of place. Every detail served a divine purpose. Jesus then pointed to a group of nearby beings. They were not angels like the ones I had learned to imagine, but they possessed a similar splendor. They moved with grace, their faces were serene, and they engaged in tasks that combined purpose and joy. Some tended gardens whose flowers changed color as they danced with the celestial wind, while others walked among the people, offering comfort and guidance. "They serve," Jesus explained, sensing my curiosity. "Each soul has a role here. Just as you had a job on earth, you will also have one here. But serving in this place is not a burden. It is fulfillment." I observed a woman kneeling before a man who seemed distressed. It was enough to place her hand on his shoulder for his expression to transform into one of peace. It was then that I understood. Heaven was not an eternity of inactive rest. It was a place of active restoration, where souls grew, learned, and helped each other. My brother looked at me with a knowing smile. Now you understand, right? This is not just eternal rest. It is a home, a kingdom, a mission. I nodded, tears in my eyes, overwhelmed by awe. The sky was not a distant promise. It was real. It was there. However, within me arose a persistent certainty. I would not stay. My final hour had not yet come. Peace remained, but a new understanding grew within me. I had to return. Jesus turned to me, his gaze reflecting love, but also urgency. "Jacqueline, it's not your time yet." A shock ran through my soul. I didn't want to go back. I had found peace, the reunion with my brother, and a life much better than any I had known on earth. The mere idea of returning to suffering, to human struggles and limitations seemed unbearable to me. "No, please don't send me back," I pleaded. He looked at me with infinite compassion. "You still have a mission. People need to hear what you saw. Your testimony can change lives." Frustration overwhelmed me, but I don't want to return with faith. I don't want to face pain or death. Jesus approached and placed his hand where my heart would be. "You will no longer face death. Even when you return, you will carry this truth with you. You will live differently, knowing what awaits you beyond." I looked at my brother, hoping he would ask me to stay, but he only smiled sadly and said, "You will return, and when your time truly comes, there will be no fear." Tears streamed down my face as the force pulling me intensified. I wanted to stay. I wanted to hold on to that perfect moment. I knew I had no other choice. With one last look at Jesus, I felt myself being pulled away from the light, from peace, from heaven. Suddenly, everything plunged into darkness. It was like a rapid fall, almost a fading away, until, with a brutal jolt, my lungs burned as they filled with air again. I opened my eyes with a desperate gasp, my body convulsing. He was alive. The hospital room fell into absolute silence for a moment, as if the entire world had stopped to process what had just happened. But suddenly, that silence transformed into chaos. Nurses were shouting, monitors were beeping uncontrollably, and doctors were rushing around me, with expressions of disbelief. I heard someone calling me, but it was as if my mind was still trapped between two worlds. Everything was too intense, the sounds, the lights, even the smells. It was as if I had returned to a place that no longer belonged to me. I looked around, disoriented, still resonating inside me the laughter of my brother, and feeling the words of Jesus etched in my soul. I had been in heaven. I had seen. I had lived. And now I was back. A nurse pressed the stethoscope against my chest with trembling hands. "You're alive," she whispered, almost unable to believe it. Another doctor looked at the monitor that had recorded the straight line of death, and then looked back at me, as if facing a ghost. Jacqueline managed to say, "You left. For a few minutes, we thought you wouldn't come back." I tried to speak, but the words didn't come to me right away. My throat was dry, and my body fragile. However, inside, an urgent fire was burning. I needed to talk. I needed to testify. Gathering strength, I whispered, "I saw the sky. I traveled with Jesus, and I saw my brother. He is fine." The room fell silent. Some exchanged doubtful glances, others were visibly shaken. But at that moment, I didn't care whether they believed me or not. The proof was in what I felt. My heart was beating with a new purpose, and my soul was burning with the mission to share what I had experienced. I had been given a second chance, and I couldn't waste it. In the following days, I struggled to find the words, how to explain what cannot be expressed in sentences, how to describe absolute peace, the certainty that death is not an end, but a beginning. Despite the difficulties in finding explanations, I knew that the message was not just for me. I had to share it. When I was asked about heaven, I spoke of the light, the beauty, and the love that permeated every corner of that place. But above all, I spoke of Jesus, of how his mere presence dispelled all fear, of how his voice reached straight to the soul, of how his love was the very essence of life there. I also shared about my brother, of how his soul had not suffered, of how the cremation had not separated him from the love of God. I expressed my long-standing doubts, the weight I carried, and the clear response I received from Christ. What I most wanted people to understand was that death does not define us. Our body is just a temporary vessel, but our soul belongs to something infinitely greater. And the most important thing, there is still time, here and now, to seek Jesus. I said with all conviction that heaven is real, but so is the opposite reality. I have not seen hell, but I know, by the Word and by Christ Himself, that judgment is real, and I learned that salvation has only one way: faith in Jesus. I begged them not to wait until death to settle accounts with God, to surrender to the love of Christ, to seek His grace, and to walk in His truth. Because at that moment, when I was before Him, feeling His hand in mine, I understood something that changed my life forever. This life passes quickly, but eternity is real, and nothing should be more important than preparing for it. Since that day I returned, nothing in me has been the same. Before my near-death experience, I lived trapped by fear, doubt, and uncertainty. I worried excessively about the future, cried for the past, and could never find peace in the present. But now everything is different. I no longer fear death, nor desperately cling to this life. Today, I live with purpose, aware that my days here are limited, but that my true home awaits me. Shortly after waking up in that hospital, I decided to leave my job as a physiotherapist, not because I couldn't bear to see death in others, but because I understood that God had something different prepared for me. I began to share my story wherever I could, in churches, in support groups, even in online spaces where people faced pain, fear, and loneliness. I never planned to be a speaker or a writer, but the Lord began to open doors, and people started to seek me out, longing for answers, yearning for hope. Many shared the same fears as I did, especially regarding cremation. Others mourned the loss of a loved one, not knowing if they were truly at peace. I shared my experience with each of them, not to convince them, but to remind them that God's love is infinitely greater than our fears. Thus was born a simple yet profound ministry, to comfort the hearts of the afflicted. I write to families who have lost a loved one to the despair of suicide, assuring them that God's mercy is greater than the darkness. I speak with those who fear cremation, reminding them that our bodies are just temporary dwellings, while our souls belong to something eternal. Every conversation, every hug, every message reminds me why I came back. But it was not only in the ministry that my life changed. Deep down, I also transformed. I no longer waste energy on empty discussions or insignificant worries. I learned to value my relationships much more, knowing that one day we will all stand before Jesus. I live with gratitude for every breath, every sunrise, every moment that is given to me. And above all, I live with hope. The hope that death is not the end, but the entrance to something too beautiful to describe. Many nights, I sit on my porch and contemplate the starry sky. I remember the place where I was, the light that enveloped me, the presence of Jesus, the smile of my restored brother. I long to return, to leave this world and go back to that home of perfect peace. But I know that my time here is not over. I have received a second chance with a purpose, to share this truth, to offer hope, to remind everyone that eternity is real. Once I feared death. I was distressed about the fate of my body after my last breath, crying and wondering if my brother had suffered. But now I know. There is no need to fear death. It is just a door, and on the other side, Jesus waits. He waits for each one who believes, for every soul that seeks Him, for every heart that surrenders to His love. If you are listening to or reading these words now, whatever your pain, your doubt, or your fear, I want you to know this. You are not alone. Your sadness is not the end of the story. Your uncertainties do not define your eternity. Jesus loves you and has already prepared a place for your soul. What matters is not whether your body will one day be buried or reduced to dust by fire. What matters is where your heart is today. So I beg you, do not wait. Do not postpone the decision to surrender to Christ. Do not let fear steal the promise of eternal life from you, because when your time comes, when you cross the threshold of this world, you will see what I saw, you will feel what I felt, and you will know, without a doubt, that death was never the end. It was always just the beginning. What an extraordinary and transformative story the Bible offers us. In Romans chapter 8, verses 38 and 39, we find a powerful affirmation. I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus, our Lord. These words remind us of the vastness of divine love that envelops and sustains us in every moment of our existence. Thank you very much, Jacqueline, for sharing this profound experience with us. And to you, who have made it this far, I wish that the peace and blessings of God fill your life and your heart. We will meet in the next video.